I think this is a good point to talk about how little we value teenagers' experiences. So earlier we were talking about how problems that teenagers have are just not that important through the eyes of an adult. And that's not to say that teenagers' problems aren't important at all. They feel big to teenagers. They don't feel big, when you sort of grow out of them usually. But that doesn't mean that they're not important issues. So moving when you're 14 is like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of times adults, I think, have issues with interacting with teenagers because they forget the experience of being a teenager and they think you're just being a dramatic teenager, you'll grow out of it. But that's such an unempathetic way to look at it.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is like there's when what we're laughing about like all the problems we experience as teenagers. Mm-hmm. We're talking about if I experienced that thing now, it wouldn't affect me in the way that it affected a teenager, me as a teenager. But the reality is like you've got to separate the objective and the subjective emotional experiences. Mm-hmm. And something happening that it doesn't matter what you think of it objectively. What matters is the emotion, how much of a shock to the system it is, and how much like that scars you like as an emotional trauma point in your life, which is entirely subjective thing. Like I say, some people move around all the time during childhood, from early childhood, and then they're completely unaffected by it because they maybe don't invest themselves in any one location anymore as much.
Well, you become used to it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Whereas. Yeah, so things happening that adults think are not things. It's all about the subjective emotional trauma of it, and that actually is very big, and it has to be taken as seriously as a major traumatic event in an adult's life, relative to an adult's brain.
Well, this is the thing. I think that a lot of the reasons that people have difficulty in raising teenagers, and I know that teenagers can be stubborn for seemingly no reason. I've had firsthand experience of that, but I think the massive roadblock in actually connecting with teenagers is just that level of empathy of seeing their problems as important. Just because you think that they're frivolous, that doesn't mean that the teenager experiences them as that. As you're saying, it's that sort of like subjective emotional reality. But like all of our experiences are subjective. You know what I mean? Like, sure, to you, losing your house is a really big deal. But to someone else, it might not be. Who knows? You can't base how much you value a problem on your own subjective viewpoint of what is a big problem, what isn't a big problem, right? Yeah. Because when you start doing that, you look at your subjective viewpoint as being objective. You're just setting yourself up for failure.
And if you go down that road, well, you can always then go, well, any problem you can experience in the Western world is nothing compared to something you can experience in the non-Western world, in areas where people are poorer. Not that the West's rich and everywhere else is poor. Obviously, I know that that's not the case.
Just you're speaking in general.
The old phrase, first world problems, it's like, well, pretty much any problem that you experience. Oh, you lost your house? Oh, well, you still have a shop you can go to. Yeah. There's still running water. You can walk into any shop and ask for water. You can any restaurant ask for water. You have toilets. You have sanitation.
Yeah.
Food is brought to every high street in the entire country. Oh man, wow, you got problems, man? I had to walk 5 miles to get a jug of water today, and I carried it on my head.
Yeah.
And then my son was eaten by an animal.
Unrelated. But yeah, no. The thing is, experiences are subjective, and we shouldn't do that little sort of oppression Olympics. I've got it worse than you've got it. All that sort of nonsense.